Hello and welcome to Valheim. I'm the Scamperchef and this is my review on Valheim. So, what is there to say about Valheim? First of all, the graphics. They are... I mean, it's looking good. The overall atmosphere, I feel like. The sun effects and wind, it's very lush. The only downside really is how pixelated it is sometimes. Like here is the bushes and trees and basically everything. The pixels on the armor. But overall, I think it still makes a lot of it, even though it is pixely at times. Still looking good. So the overall graphic and atmosphere, I mean, yeah, it is pixely, but it got a good atmosphere. So I give that a 7 out of 10. Then the story is basic at best. I mean, the story is Odin did something, or the Forsaken, I don't remember really. Part of Yggdrasil was cut off, and then the Forsaken woke up again, and you were called throw in to kill the Forsaken, and that's it. You get the story, this wall of text at the beginning, and well, that's the explanation why you go around and kill all these bosses. So there isn't really any story. Shut up. There isn't really any story, any relevant story, it's just an explanation for why you're doing this. I mean, it's similar to Minecraft. You go out and to kill the Ender Dragon, that's basically the end game as a boss of the game, but there's just no explanation of why or how, why you're doing it, why you go out to kill the Ender Dragon, and here we have this Odin Forsaken story to tell you why you're doing it, but it's not really relevant to the game. Like, if you take out that wall of text at the beginning and just have Hugin here at the start tell you you have to kill these guys, would still be the very same game. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. I mean, it's enough. It gives you a bit of a story, and I mean, of course, Odin as a god has a lot of to do, so he's not going around and pampering you, and he's sending one of his ravens out to keep keep a watch on you. So yeah, it's not much, but there's at least something. Now the gameplay. The gameplay overall is okay. It's solid. There are some wonky points, I want to say, like the hoe in particular could use some work, because when you try to level ground, you can't. At first you don't feel like you can control at what height it is, because it takes a height that your character is on. So when you want to level a ground higher, then you have to go on a spot where you are higher. And when that spot is hard to get somewhere, because like maybe it is near a rock or something, then it's hard to get the terrain to that level. Also, even when you raise up by standing on a rock or something, or a wall or a floor, it still takes the terrain height that you are on and not the actual height. So a little bit wonky. It could have been made like you can raise and lower the desired height by the mouse wheel, like on the building menu. Where you can turn the elements, and so instead of turning the circle, you raise and lower it. Also, um, the mining itself, like, you dig yourself down and down, but the problem is here, you dig kinda in front of you, so when you're standing in the middle of one square, you dig the square in front of you, and also when you are digging up a new tile that is much higher than your current one. Okay, that's not a big difference, but oftentimes suddenly the ground you stand on raises up one again. So, yeah, something wonky as well. But the rest and everything, it works good. This is, by the way, my debug world where I test out stuff and things. So in terms of gameplay, we also have the building mechanic, and here I tested out how different... Hold on a second. So here I tried out and experimented with how high different building materials can go. And you can see the normal wood as well as the dark wood. Even though this is also a 2x4, can go to the same height, while core, uh, the core wood beam can get a decent much higher and reaches the same height on the 4-meter beam than the 2-meter beam, but a little bit less than when you use the horizontal beam. Also curiously, I just noticed that even though this top block has no contact to the ground itself, it still counts as grounded. I also tried out and experimented with how the core woods poles work together with stones, because when you put wood on stone, it gets basically a reset again. But as you can see, it's more or less not a full reset. It still can only go to a certain height, but core wood supported by stone still goes a decent part higher than core wood alone. And of course, the iron beam goes the highest. So in terms of that, it should be explained a little bit, the static system. Like when you have a simple wall here and make some roofing, and of course it goes down on the other side again. Quickly. Damn it. Okay. and like this, and you see this is orange to reddish orange, and normally you would think to stabilize it, yeah, why not just make a support beam here, but because it's the same height of the same material, so this one is grounded like that wall, that one is one off grounded as that piece of roof, and so on, and of course that one is now better because this one doesn't start at grounded, but okay, something changed. Because when I first played this game I had the trouble of the roof being too unstable, and I tried to make a pole, a support pole, and it changed nothing at all. So maybe they changed that. Okay. But yeah, like I said, in the beginning it was like the poles do as much support as the roofs and walls itself, and there was no difference at all. So even though a support beam like that would have made sense, it didn't. But now it does, so good one at that. And so with all these things in mind, I'm gonna give the gameplay a good 8 out of 10. Next comes the AI. The AI is decent. Though it's also kinda weird at times. There is a sneaking what's it called? Sneak mechanic in the game when enemies are triggered by you and get triggered and start attacking you, but it's also kinda weird at times. Like some enemies, like skeletons, run at you and keep attacking you, and I don't know feelings to that. I don't tend to let them attack me much. But for example, one of the most infuriating enemies are the Greylings and Grey Dwarfs, and they tend to walk at you, attack you once or twice, and then run away for what feels like half an hour, and in that time you can barely catch them because they keep running around. And at times I had it where I thought, oh, they're running at me, now I can block them and kill them, and they just kept running at me, and that's not really satisfying. So I'm gonna give the AI a 4 out of 10. Next, the design. I gotta say it's lovely. How the game presents itself with the hut. You have on the top left your hotbar with 8 spaces. Sometimes I wish it was 10. You have the minimal health and foods bar, which is also okay. The top right with a simple mini-map and current status effects. And yeah, and of course the stamina bar in the middle. I really like this minimalistic approach. Leaves you really a lot of room for the atmosphere of the game. Other huts though, like the building, the 4 tabs of miscellaneous crafting and building, they are okay. Sometimes I have to look through them a bit more, and like some things are like obvious, like all your crafting stations and their upgrades are obviously in the crafting chamber, and your general house building pieces are in the building section. And furniture is obviously furniture, but with miscellaneous, like, I get that the wood stacks and stone stacks are there. The portal and ward are also don't really fit into any of the other three categories, same with the guard and the ships. But the thing I see is, like, the furniture, most of the furniture doesn't really has a big impact other than giving the rested bonus. So the chests, they're interactable and quite important. The torches and scone, or scones, I don't know. And the brazier give light, they are somewhat interactable, but the thing is, the campfire, the bonfire, and the heart also give light. And they interact with the cooking stations. You need to put the cooking stations on top of a campfire, so why is the campfire, for example, in miscellaneous and not also in crafting to go along with the cooking station? Or in furniture. For example, the treasure chest, I think, also acts as a chest. No, it's just decoration, so the treasure chest, the coin pile, I get the coin pile and the coin stack because they are just a tool for storing your coins outside of a chest in a stack or something. But the cartography table, it is kinda a neat decoration object and interactable like a somewhat like a chest and chair, so miscellaneous is, it is like, honestly, when you don't can open up your mind to anything, you can just throw it into miscellaneous and you can't say anything against that, but like, you could make a game out of this. Like, what of this doesn't belong here? Like, the card, the ship and everything, and the cartography table are interactable with, but everything else is not. The wood stacks, piles, and yeah, so wood stacks and piles are basically just storage containers. The hard bonfire and campfire give off heat and light. And the portal and water are absolutely miscellaneous in their actions. One other thing though is the manual crafting system. Well, not the system in itself, but when you are in a high level forge, for example, or working table, you get a lot of crafting recipes. But still, sometimes I feel like there needs to be a search bar for something. Also, when you are in, I mean, when you are in this debug mode, it is it is obviously not designed to be played in the debug mode, but still, even then the search bar would become very handy. So the design is, it's functional. I like it. I like the way it is for the most part. I can't complain too much about it, so 7 out of 10. Now comes probably one of the most important things about gaming, and it's playtime and replayability. currently I have in my Let's Play I'm at 17-ish hours, so I think I did fool around here and there, and of course you can speedrun games like this, but I'm not a speed runner. So I would think a good 20 hours if you are not super fast, but also not super slow about everything. But an important question about raw game time is, did it got stretched? Like, do you have like things you have to do in order to progress the game that are just stretched out to get more game time out of it? And I think Valheim has that in the form that you need better gear for the next boss. Of course, technically you can kill every boss unarmed. You don't without armor and anything. Well, you would need a lot of frost potions to kill the motor. But in a legit way, in a normal way, the way it is meant to be played. So you get gear, you upgrade your gear, and then you kill the boss. You need to get the gear, and for that you need to get metal, because bronze, iron, silver, dark metal, it's all required for the next type of gear. And these metals are marked as non-teleportable. So when you go out into your world, you go around and go to a nearby black forest, get the copper out, you have to physically move it back. Then you go to the swamp and have to physically move back the irons. Then you go further out to the mountains and get the silver back, or you get all your other items to the place where the metal is, and so on and so on. And that kind of feels like it's just made to make the game a little bit longer. Also, now you could say, like I said, you could move your stuff to the place where you get the metal from, but you have to remember for the metal stuff to proceed it, like to craft something with it, you need a forge, and surprise, a forge needs copper. So if you move copper from the Black Forest to your base where you build it, or move physically copper to the Black Forest, or iron from the swamp or copper to the swamp to build a forge there, you have to move physically between the places one way or the other. Of course, you can bypass that by the so-called pocket dimension, where you just, let me explain it real quick. You're in your base, you venture out to the swamp, you gather iron up there, and you pick it up in your inventory, and then you log out with your character, spawn in a different world, put the iron there in a chest, log back into your world, teleport from your swamp portal to your base, log out again, log back into the other world, collect the iron again, and log back out and into your world where you're now at home. That's the pocket dimension, and that's how you can teleport metals and dragon eggs around without the normal restriction of this stuff not being portable. But again, that's not how the game tells you to play it. And another question is, are multiple playthroughs possible? Technically, no, because there are no alternatives. You start the game, you kill Eiktir, then you kill the Elder, then you kill the Bone Mass, then you kill the Moder, then you kill whatever the Goblin boss is called, and then you beat the game. That's it. There are no alternatives, no alternative paths. All you can do is like do a challenge like oh, I'm gonna use a troll set. I'm gonna go into the Black Forest and get the troll set plus 15 levels of sneak and play as a thief and just go around and backstab stuff. Or the next level, you go into the swamp and grind the root armor set and play an archer. Or whatever may come with the mountains or plains as optional armor pieces, but that's just a challenge. That's like, I'm gonna beat the game with a flint axe. That's not replayability by the game, it's replayability by yourself. Another thing that where the devs are kinda stretching the game time and the grind is the smelting process. A char kiln turns one wood into one coal in 16 seconds. So every 32 seconds you have 2 pieces of coal. And one smelter turns 1 ore and 2 coals into 1 bar. Just that it doesn't really. Because a smelter, an ore requires 31 seconds to be smelted. Remember, the charcoal kilns takes 32 seconds for 2 pieces of coal. And the smelter runs for 31 seconds. So we'd think, okay, the smelter is slightly faster than the kilns. Not too much of a problem. But the real problem here is that you take, like, to produce one coal from wood, it takes 16 seconds. But the coal burns only for 15 seconds. So after 30 seconds, there is no coal left in the smelter, but still an unsmelted ore. And when you then put in a third piece of coal, only then you get the bar of metal after an additional second. So technically, a smelter requires 2 1/16 coal per bar. Of course, when you don't... And I also did a little experiment on that. When you stuff 2 pieces of coal in there and you break down the smelter, you get the 2 pieces back. But when you let it smelt, like when I put in 3 pieces of coal there and 1 ore there, I get out a bar and I still have 1 of 20 pieces of coal in there. You have to keep in mind that it's only 15th or 14 of 15th. It's not a full piece of coal anymore. And when I then disassemble the smelter, I don't get the piece of coal back. So I lose basically 1/14th of a coal piece. Or basically a full piece, because the next time I build the smelter and craft it, use it to smelt, I have to put another piece of coal in there. Because it doesn't really matter when you just put down your smelter once and leave it alone for the rest of its eternity. But still, it's something to be aware of when you have, like, only limited amounts of resources and you don't want to get out into the Black Forest for more settling cores, and you, like, build 2 kilns, create a lot of charcoal, and then build 2 smelters and smelt the ore, and then turn these off and turn them into charcoal kilns again for more coal, and you always lose a little bit of coal, potentially, every now and then, if you don't pay attention to always smelt 16 pieces of ore. But the point is, why? Why this little bit extra? Why is it 16 seconds in the kiln? Why is it 15 seconds in the smelter? And the 31 seconds process? Why not just have it 15 and 15 and 30? Like, you produce two pieces of coal in 30 seconds, you use up 2 pieces of coal in 30 seconds, everything would be clean and nice, and there wouldn't be so much little nip every here and there. So, with all that, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Yes, I know it sounds like I'm very annoyed by this, but I am. But it's not a huge issue. It's more the game choice, and it's okay. I've seen worse. Now, about the difficulty. Sometimes I struggle with things, but I mean in-game, before jokes are made. Sometimes I struggle with things in-game, but that's just... I mean, it's not really the difficulty itself, or rather, the scale always changes. So when you go from, best example, from the Black Forest, you get your full gear, your full bronze gear, and go into the swamp, you're obviously weaker than, well, the stuff there. It's quite hard, it's tough. But that's always when you go from Leather to the Black Forest, and not so much, because it's also in the early game, but when you go from the Black Forest, the swamp is challenging. When you're done with the swamp, the mountains is challenging. When you go from the mountain to the plains are challenging. But when you're through with the swamp is easy. When you're done with the mountain is easy. When you're done with the plains are easy. Relatively. The bosses are another thing. They can be tough, but I never really struggled with them. Like, I never had the feeling of when I had it out to kill the boss that I died and died and died again and again and again, and I had the feeling that I have to grind something or grind more. Like, I never had the feeling that I can't beat the bone mass and have to raise up my club skill to make to beat it, or get my blocking skill up in order to survive anything. I never felt like the skills, I had to grind the skills, so yeah. Also, there's no slider, no manual difficulty setting you can give. Like, if you are feeling the game is too hard or too easy, there's nothing you can do about it. Other than, if it's too easy, get a mod to change it. There is something where, because the difficulty, I think, scales a bit with the amount of players, and so when you mod your game to assume that there are 2 players, obviously it's a little bit more difficult, or that you make the game spawn always star enemies, like there are no Grey Dwarfs, no star Grey Dwarfs, and it spawns only 1-star Grey Dwarfs and top, or 2-star Grey Dwarfs or more, or even more, because even though only 2 stars are shown, you can create and spawn enemies with more than 2 stars. And they have enhanced health, and I don't think they do more damage, but they have more health and they drop a lot more. Anyway, the basic vanilla difficulty, it's okay. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I would like a little bit more. Like, if you could change the amount of the enemies, or however they would do the scaling. I just feel like it could be a little bit better. Now, other things. Yeah, the other category is just for... It's basically my miscellaneous now. There's some stuff that you can't put anywhere else. For example, we have this dragon adornment, and it was good. And with the Heart of Home update, we got the Raven adornment and the Wolf adornment. Yeah. And They are okay, they look nice. My big problem is just that they... Not that they use tar and fine wood, compared to just fine wood of the wood dragon adornment. My big problem is more that that's the only version we have of them. We can't build a wolf or raven adornment without the tar. And the problem that I have with that is simply that when we put down a wood beam like this and put on a... Mystical Ball stops you. Yeah, it's too close. Of course. Always when I try to showcase something. So we build up a beam and put the dragon adornment on it. It has the same color. It goes beautifully along with it. But obviously the wolf, it's a lot darker and it just doesn't go along well with the normal wooden beam. Now of course you could use a dark wood beam on it, but as you can see it's although not attached to it, but I would just like if we could get a wolf adornment and raven adornment without the tar with the same light brown color as the wood dragon, and perhaps for the people that do like the dark color, maybe add a wood dragon adornment with tar to make it darker as well. Another thing that sometimes bothers me are the roofs. We have a 26-degree roof and a 45-degree roof. And basically these are like with their height comparison, the 26-degree roof is a half wall, whereas a 26-degree roof is a full wall. But I would sometimes like to make it a little bit steeper to make not my home so wide. And what I just want is not a roof that goes 2 meters in the horizontal, but rather just a 1 meter, like a 1x1 piece of wood, but still a full wall up. So I don't know what degree it would be, if it would be 71 or something. I don't know, but I would just like a little bit of a steeper roof as well. And while we're in at the topic of roofs, one thing you see in houses as well sometimes is a little bit of an overhang, but these 2 meters, it doesn't look always good, and in terms of that I would like shorter roofs as well. So you have a 2x2 floor piece, and as you can see both roofs cover 2x2 meters, but I would like, similar with the floors where you have a 1x1 tile, I would like not necessarily a 1x1 roof, but maybe a 1x2. Just a smaller case so that you can create a little overhang without clipping one roof into another. Another thing that I am missing somewhat is a real usage of the trophies. The point is here you can create a ward, and basically this ward shields the structures and everything inside this area. Because when something gets attacked, you hear this boing, and you see the blue shield which indicates the area of which the ward affects. But and it does. For those who don't know, what the ward does is it prevents, or not prevents, but it lessens the damage by like 90%. So when enemies like Grey Dwarfs and Boars attack your stuff, because that's what they do, they deal a lot less damage to your structures, but the annoying problem is they still do it. And when you like have a bit of a bigger home or spread out home, and some small enemy decides to attack your stuff, you always hear the boing, you hear the damage, and you have to run around and figure out where the hell is that guy attacking. Perhaps he's also randomly running away again and starts attacking elsewhere. So my point is, I would like some sort of shielding kind of mechanic where you put down like a small pole, like a spiked something that you can put on a trophy of something. Like you can like on this pole you could stuff a grayling head, a grayling trophy, and that would lead to graylings. That would prevent graylings from entering a certain area and around this head, around this trophy, which would enable you to keep your base more safe-ish. Perhaps disable the effect of these things when an invasion comes, so that you're not perfectly 100% safe against enemies at all times, but still keep the enemies at bay when you're the randomly generated enemies. And keep in mind, you still have to go out and kill the enemy a couple times to get the trophy itself, and perhaps a good amount more times to get enough trophies for your to encircle your base or whatever you have. But yeah, that's something I would like to see. And next is what I'm missing is in terms of equipment, because there's some things that are for some weird reason missing. Like before the Home and Heart update, I think it was, we had the bronze buckler, and that was the only bronze shield, and then we went on with the bandit shield for the iron, silver shield for silver, and the darkwood shield for the black metal. But with the Heart and Home update, we got the iron buckler. And I was wondering, why didn't they add the silver buckler and the black metal buckler at the same time? I mean, it's basically just the bronze buckler in a different color. Because they let me just check if the texture, obviously the thumbnail, the picture in the inventory is different, but okay, it got a little bit more detail. But still, we have a shield and more or less a tower shield for every tier, shield tier. But we had only the bronze buckler in the beginning, and then they added the iron buckler. And why not the other? Why not the other metals for bucklers? Same, and while I was at that, I also checked out some other like weapon tiers, and I noticed that we have the stone axe, we have the flint axe, we have the copper axe, we have the iron axe, and then we have the black metal axe, but we don't have a silver axe. Also, the pickaxes, it starts with the antler pickaxe, bronze and iron, and never get an upgrade there. I also noticed that there's no silver No, there is a silver spear, but there is no black metal spear, so I think the spear is the only weapon that lacks a black metal variation. And the Atgear is also lacking a silver variation, and I mean, it's not that the things that the models differ greatly. For example, it's the Atgear, it's basically the same, just a recolor. So I wonder why is there no silver Atgear at 58 pierce damage? Because as you can see, it's 45 plus 20, 65 plus 20 would be 85 plus 20 would be 105. So why is it missing? And another thing that I don't feel it's missing, but a little suggestion. We have the Serpent scale shield. And I would like to suggest, why not a Serpent scale armor set? That perhaps gives plus 15% to swimming or so. Or maybe even better, and more unique and more alluring to get it, would be perhaps it's unlocked if it were to unlock a diving mechanic, or perhaps allows you to walk on the ground, like walk in water. Perhaps in combination with a new, like, water breathing, what's it called, water breathing meat base, that you can walk under the water, collect, like, it could have a lot of uses. You could easily clear out rocks and logs from the shore's bottom, like right now. Come on. When you are in the water or above the water, you sometimes have rocks and logs sticking up, like this one, and you want to tear it down, but you only can get so deep without waves interfering or helping, depending on what you're trying to do right now. But if you were to wear a scale, a Serpent scale armor set, and were just able to walk down on the water, you would always be able to clear out that rock completely without leaving a little bit that may or may not still scratch your boat when you drive over at a low tide. Also, you could collect stuff, for example, when your boat gets destroyed, the nails and everything not quote-unquote light, like the deer hide and the wood that drops down onto the floor without any tricks or mods, it's basically lost. Like one time I had we were out somewhere and the small ship got destroyed, and we were searching for the nails, or basically the resources, and we found it way out, and yeah, we had a portal set up, so we had it home and had to, with the hoe, raise the ground around the nails and everything, and then raise the ground off where the nails then were, and build a tower, and just jumped into the water from a high enough place in the hopes to finally get deep down enough to pick up the nails again. It was horrible, honestly. But we were also too stingy to go out and get more bronze, to get more nails, to craft a new boat. So yeah, that's an idea for that. Other than that, there's only one little thing in the console. When you have the debug, not the debug mode, but the devs commands unlocked, you can go into the God mode, and it does what it says. I took 46 damage, but I didn't took any damage really. But the annoying thing about this is it doesn't count for stamina. And the annoying thing about this is I use the debug mode for like these kind of tests. For example, this here, yeah, this here is a little bit of a experiment on how high I can build for a lighthouse and everything, and you still have to wait for your stamina to come back again, and it's a little bit annoying. So if you could make the God mode also work on stamina, that would be neat. Anything else? No. So, overall, I would say Valheim is a good game. It's great. It's a good sandbox slash adventure slash building thing. You can create a lot of stuff with the materials and everything that you have at hand, depending on the scale. Like if you only make a little hut, there's probably not too much you can trick around with. This is a little hut I constructed when they added tar tiles, and I figured out, or wanted to figure out, how to properly set up the crystal wall slash windows. And yeah, this is the first test of how well you can set up a round hut. And yeah, I've seen some other constructions that are kind of mind-blowing. Not my cup of tea, but yeah, it's depending on the scale, you can do a lot with the pieces you have. And with Valheim still being early access and the developers still adding more to the game, there is more to come. So I'm looking forward to that. So all in all, I would say Valheim does a good job at what it is. You can go exploring, you can do building, you can basically a less blocky Minecraft with a little bit more story, a little bit more adventure, less overwhelming blocks and everything. One thing I would just love would be a bit more control over the world generation. Currently we have just a seed that enters it, and I would like a bit more of control like in Minecraft. I think you can set you can set up how big the biomes are. So like in my world I had a lot of really tiny swamps, and like in the Let's Play I drove around and around and I saw a swamp and I explored the swamp, and it wasn't big enough for any crypts, so I went to the next and it also wasn't big enough for any crypt to spawn, and that was a little bit frustrating. Similar it could go for mountains being too small to spawn any dragon eggs or structures for the moda spawn. So would be nice to be able to change that. And also in a way I would like to be able to set the size of the islands. Like I would be interested in a play where I have somewhat medium-sized islands with huge biomes, so that one island is one biome. So I would start on a meadows island, I would build a raft and go to a huge black forest island, and so on and so on. Because what I like a lot about this game is just the exploration with the boat, and sometimes we have a huge landmass. Like imagine if I were to spawn there, on this meadows island. I would have a black forest here that I could go to. I have a swamp there and there that I could go to. I have a mountain that I could get there to go to, and planes there. And if it weren't for the boss spawners being outside further and further away, okay, it's called Yagluf. If it weren't for the boss spawners to be so far away, if you could spawn them anyway, anywhere, I wouldn't have to leave this island to play the entire game. And as you can see, the world is huge. And to theoretically be able, if you could spawn the bosses where you want, to finish the entire game on a single island without building a boat, missing all this boat exploration, it would be a bummer. And yeah, I'm not counting my scores from the previous topics together to give a total score, because obviously different games have different weights on stuff. Like in certain games graphic is more important, in other games like role-playing games the story is more important, in shooters the gameplay is more important, and the AI perhaps, while in racing games there's no, like, so I don't want to figure out what the weight of every rating should be, so it's just more or less a simplicity guide to how much I like, how much I'm satisfied with these topics. But overall, I can only say I recommend Valheim. It's a good game, and it's only getting better, I hope. I'm pretty sure about that, though. And one thing, another one thing, it always gets better with friends. Like, I had a great experience where I started a game with 2 friends, and basically what we did is I scouted around for a good place to set up our camp. Another guy started hacking trees around the area to gather wood to build our base, and the third guy, he grabbed a bow and already started hunting boars and deer so we could get early armor to kill Ike and everything, to be prepared for him. And it was great fun, as long as it lasted. So, if you have a couple friends, make sure to play with them. So thank you all for watching, and see you all next time. Goodbye. As a little extra, I want to show around you some stuff that I've built in my time in Valheim. And first off, when I started playing the game, this was basically my first house that I built. It started out as a, I think, 2x2 or 3x3 hut, and I just scrapped it and added more to it again and again. So the second floor was added only a lot later, and it got a little bit crampy. As you can see, I just stuffed everything inside here. The workbench, the forge, and when I came to add the artisan table, I really figured I need more space, because it was getting hard to get to the top floor for the storage. And that's when I finally decided to create a new place, and you'll see that in a second. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, here you can see what the area looked like before. There we have an early prototype of a lighthouse I created. And there you can already see the harbor area and the canal that I dug out just to get through this with a long ship comfortably. Yeah, I put a lot of work in this back then. One thing though, yes, I built a second longboat just to make this more lively. I just spawned this one in to give the big entrance, the natural entrance. I didn't want to drive out one of the existing longboats just for this. And yeah, this is basically my first try of a longboat, of a lighthouse. It's just a... come on, thank you. I just built up the stone walls and try to make a little bit of a semi-symmetrical symbol or whatever. So yeah, have the bonfire a little bit higher up. But as you can see, it's a bit chunky and not very high. And because it's so chunky, you can't see it too good. It's decent, but I've come up with better designs. Anyway, back to this harbor area. There's not too much in here. I just felt this land tongue would be good to have this artificial structure on it. This is a little remnants from when I moved over, because I just built up a portal over there and I created this little portal hut for it later, where I just put all my stuff in these chests for now and then just use them to build up stuff. And there in the distance you can already see 3 structures and another longboat. So before we go into the big hall, let's go to the more practical area, because these 8 kilns, yeah, I just wanted to have a lot of them when I needed to smelt a lot of iron or whatever, because when I back then started with the iron, I filled up an entire longship cargo space, like every single piece with 30 stack of scrap iron. So you can guess how much that took. And inside we have basically all the, or rather mostly the fully upgraded workbench. Apparently not fully upgraded, but has some of everything to make it look good. 2 spinning wheels and some more storages, and a little from the charcoal kilns we come to the Meltery. As you can see, on the left side we have 4 smelters, on the right side we have 4 advanced smelters. And here you have my the first time I created my lovely little smelter area. I felt it was very pretty. I also added a artisan table just for the kicks of it. And small side doors to the smelter places. Back then I also didn't know how to properly protect my stuff. As you can see, someone ditched off the scone. But it doesn't matter, it still looks good all in all. I also wanted to keep the oak tree there, so that's why it's a little bit off to the side there. Hold on, 1 second. One thing why I wanted to do that is just the outsides of this smelter tower thingy. Now comes the big hall. Yeah, stop sneaking. So on the right you can already see a little bit of a field I wanted to make there, but I never got to bother with setting up and fertilizing the area. But I still set up 2 windmills and a couple of beehives for honey. And why is that damaged? I don't know. Let me just fix that real quick. And yeah, now we come into a little bit of a pre-hall. Don't know what you want to call this, but the big hallway. This is I'm very proud of this. Like some of kind of big gathering hall. I'm a little bit annoyed of these iron beams that I had to set up for the top ceiling, so that the fires wouldn't burn off in rain. But I think like it's still a very decent setup. Also the half round end of it with this throne on a higher platform. There, another thing, I could have used the stone throne, but personally I like the raven throne more. With of course the 4 out of 5 boss monsters, what they're called, I don't know, doesn't come to my head. With them on the wall. Jungleth, or what he was called, of course is missing because I never bothered killing him because he's not granting any access to more game content yet, at the point of this recording. So yeah, why kill him if I have to kill him again when content past him is created. Now on the one wing we have the kitchen area, where I set up stuff and some cooking areas and obviously some more practical than realistic storages. Also a little bit of a bedroom where I have set up another throne and just some little bit of decor to reinforce chests to keep my quote-unquote personal stuff. I mean, technically everything of this is my personal stuff. Then there's obligatory storage room, which is just a room filled with chests and again, and the portal room, which yeah, it's a portal. To more portals. This is basically my portal hub that I set up so that I could have just one portal for everything, so I don't have to bother with renaming stuff again and again. Obviously I never set up an Ike tier portal. And yeah, I set up a lot more portals for when I needed some. So, because I had some incidents where I changed the name of a portal, and I think once I got stuck on the other side and I couldn't go back because the name changed or something, or I wondered or forgot how exactly I wrote down the name of the other portal. So that was at the time annoying. I also set up a little platform here. Also, back then I couldn't really be bothered with doing a full circle-ish top, and just, yeah, you can see how I did it or not did it. So that's basically that is basically my big singular project. Up here I set up trophies with every trophy wall with every trophy that I got so far. There are some missing, but yeah. And on the very top floor, it's just a little bit of a... what's it called? I don't know. Where I just stuffed the old stuff that I don't need anymore, the outdated stuff that I could put into an obliterator for a little bit of coal, but I figured why not keep it listed at the tier level, roughly, of course, to just keep it for remembrance, for memory. Okay, I can't go out here. So yes, that's the first thing, the first big project I built for myself. And this is basically what it looks like on the outside. A little bit rough on the edges here and there, but I tried my best back then to make it a bit more than a huge blob. Judge for yourself if you think I succeeded at it. Make it look presentable or not. Obviously there are some little details off here and there. Next we come to the next biggest project that I did with my two friends. And as you can already see in the discrepancy between what the main game screen shows and what the minimap says, we did a lot of deforestation. And over there it already unfolds. And this little hut here is basically where it all started back in the days when we started. This was one hut that I built for all of us. There are still our beds and everything. But at some point we decided that it was time to move out and start on something bigger. The big project that we all wanted to do, which was more or less of a settlement, really. Now this palisade didn't start out as it is now, and I left some spaces open for more buildings, but basically we had it down, and I think the first thing really we built, yeah, we basically started from the bottom. This is our little harbor area. And yeah, I think the first building I actually built back then was this little tavern, where we set up some item stands with mugs and a little cozy campfire with a deer trophy over it. And of course, after something so fluffy and useless, I of course had to create a storage house. especially because it was at the harbor where we get most of the loot, because we are going around with the ships and everything. And after that came the forge that I set up. And yeah, I tried to again make it look good, but also practical, so you could use the forge at its 5 level. I tried to make it like there's someone living in there and actually keeping up a shop and everything. And of course, as a smith needs coal, I set up a little hut for the charcoal kilns, a little shopping area. Of course, it would be a big fire hazard, so I set up a stone wall to prevent the smith burning up from the charcoal coal. I also set up a little town square. The picture, the pronunciation really plays on little. The second storage house, because one didn't have enough chests to neatly store every single item. Next came, of course, the hard piece, the big gathering hall. It's not as flashy as my private one, and you can see that it was more or less already... I wouldn't say it was falling apart back then already, but the focus was different. Like, we had our tables, we had tables for quote-unquote guests if we ever had more people in there. I made some decorative support structure beams, constructions. I created a little bit of a watchtower in the middle. Because I was also practicing a little bit on different designs for everything. And trying to figure out what is practical and what is actually looking good. So and so on. Then for the next semi-practical thing was a kitchen. A little fire with a cauldron over it and some fermenters. Notice that there's no cooking station in there. Shame on me. This here is a little fishing hut, though I never bothered with putting up actual cooking stations to put food on them. Also, it's a bit... like, back then I didn't know that wood would only get to a certain degree destroyed by weather and everything, so I kinda built this roof so that it wouldn't took any damage, because I didn't want it to have the boat out here and one day wake up and have all of this just wood on the ground. Also, my my second attempt on a lighthouse, based on my lighthouse experience in my personal world. It's even chunkier, but there's a little bit of an internal structure, because... no, wait, this is actually the first one, I think, because I noticed that I can't place a bonfire here, and everything else wasn't bright enough, but still gives you a good view over the village and the area, and I feel it doesn't look too bad itself. Like some big windows to look out from, and the windows in the stone don't look too bad either, in my opinion. Though I did have a little bit of trouble with the setting up of the stones, because the stairs needed support, but as you can see here, I went one up, but here I had to place 2 up because, yeah, you don't have a 1x3 column and that one just wouldn't hold there. So I had to support it somehow. Over there I could just use these double beams. For some reason I either couldn't put them up here, there, or that one wouldn't hold without that one. I don't know. Thing is, it doesn't look as clean as I wanted it to. Now this one was a bit, yeah, as you can see it's already a little bit wonky, and it was one that a building that I constructed for the future, because this is where I wanted to put down the, what they're called, the blast furnaces, like in the world I showed you before, where I put them like this in a corner, so there are two the delivery and the intake and the outtake would be on the open sides, neatly in a square. Then there's a little bit more of experimentation of different house styles. And just a little filler hut. So as you can see on this flattened ground, I wanted originally to try out a half round house ending on that side, but back then I couldn't get it to work properly, or at least the way I wanted to. Then over here we have the hut that one of my friends created for himself. Another filler hut, another filler hut. My first, no wait, that's a square hut I built based on the trial in my debug world, where I set up some other stuff again. Try to make it look like it's lived in. Another fishing hut, and of course on the palisades I constructed these kinds of, I don't know what they're called, but you can see what they're supposed to be. And at some points where I didn't have enough palisade in a straight line to make it look okay, I decided to construct this kind of watchtower. And yeah, here as you can see, a little overhang of a roof so that one could work here in the dry if it were to be raining. Also a bit of a mixture of carpenter slash hunter slash stonecutter, because this is a place where I had a stonecutter standing when I didn't pull it out to use somewhere else. Also a little bit of a storage unit. And yeah, the last building I created in this village was this thing. And it was kind of a big tavern slash inn. Just experimented a little bit with a more, yeah, experimental interior design with more layers, a little bit of a stage with reeling, where a bard could act without the danger of falling down. Then a little bit of a back area. In German we would call this a Biergarten, beer garden. And on the other stairs up we would have some guest rooms. Simple, with a bed, a chest, not really decorated. With a lot less decor. And yeah. As you can see also, dug up a big branch around it, around the palisades, and set up the sticks in order to really keep out enemies. And yes, that was basically my first project with friends. And to end it off, a little showcase of what my pocket dimension looks like. Just a little hut with a couple of chests for storing a lot of stuff, a fully upgraded, or at least partial upgraded workbench and forge to repair stuff while I'm out on the field if I need to. Because really, if you go out to a mountain or a crypt and you want to dig up iron or silver and your pickaxe breaks, you don't want to go home to repair your stuff and go back in there, so that's why I also set this up on my pocket dimension. So that was more or less a showcase of what I have done so far in Valheim. There is some more that I've done, but that I might keep for another special. So thank you all for watching and see you all next time. Wait, I did that in the... whatever. You know what I mean. Bye bye.